have a typical elevator speech that I do with anybody that asks about personalized fitness. Definitely in every one of our consults. And part of that is that even though we have an award-winning facility, which is our flagship in Mobile, we also have a wonderful facility on Eastern Shore. We do in-home training, we do online training, and we do corporate training. But I always say that the main reason why people come to see us is our expertise. With every staff member possessing at minimum a bachelor's degree in the field of either exercise science, exercise physiology, kinesiology, sport medicine, or athletic training, that makes it the most qualified staff in the Southeast. And we're always excited when we add a new staff member because we add so much to our program. I want to introduce you to Aubrey Smith, a new exercise specialist today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Good day and welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're welcoming a new member, actually not so new. We'll get to that in a minute. But I want to tell you how to get in touch with us if you have any questions about this podcast or any others, or you want to reach out to my guest, or as always, if you have any questions about dispelling the myths of health, fitness, and wellness, please contact us at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. Personaledgefitness.com, of course, is our website. Personal Edge Fitness is our Facebook page. Hit us up on X at Team PE if you are so inclined. But I want to welcome to the show a not so new, and I'll tell you why that is in a minute, exercise specialist with us, Miss Aubrey Smith. Aubrey, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. And the reason I say not so new is that if you're a fan of the podcast, you know that when we get a new member, pretty soon thereafter, we have them on the show. I didn't do that with Aubrey, and I don't even have it. I worked last night thinking of I need to come up with a really good excuse why that happened, and it didn't. Life happened, and I didn't. But because of another podcast that we're going to do with Aubrey, it's actually fantastic that we're doing it now. Not only that's a good idea, the second thing is also covering my bases. So, but Aubrey, tell us a little about yourself. I want to know about your education, where you're from.
Okay. Well, any story that I tell is going to be a long story. So cut me off.
Have we met?
Whenever. I don't know.
Because you think you can tell a long story. You know I'm long-winded, so go for it. Good luck.
So I was born in Michigan. I moved to Indiana when I was 8. When I was 8 years old, that was when I met my husband, Nate, and everyone knows Nate.
You met him at 8 years old?
I met him at 8 years old.
Oh, gosh. I was joking.
He was in my 3rd grade class.
Oh, wow.
And then we were in every class together up until junior high. And so he's kind of part of where I have moved and traveled to. So that's why I mentioned that. So I went to school in West Lafayette, Indiana. I ended up going to Purdue for my college education. Right. And Purdue was the last thing that I wanted to go to, actually, because it was in my hometown. It was in my backyard. They were bad at sports. I was like, I do not want to go here. I want to get very far away. I want to go away from home. Right. I thought I wanted to go to IU. And then I ended up living at home my freshman year of college and going to Purdue, which was everything that I didn't want. But it was really great. When I started at Purdue, I actually started in athletic training. Okay. My original goal was to be a physical therapist. Right. And this was kind of something that I didn't really think through when I was in high school. My best friend's mom was a PT. My sister-in-law was a PTA. I played a lot of sports. I liked helping people. I was like, okay, A plus B equals C. This seems like a really great idea. And I would do different like shadowing opportunities, and I just hated it every single time. And I was like, oh, like it was just that one. And then I would do another one, and I'd be like, it was just that one. And I was like, oh, I didn't really think that through. Anyways, so I get to college. I still want to be a physical therapist. They recommended most kids who wanted to be a PT to go into athletic training because it was a very competitive cohort. You would get a lot of experience with the professors.
Easy stepping stone.
Easy stepping stone. And I was like, okay, like sounds good. I made it all the way. And then I found out very quickly, like I am not the person to call in an emergency situation. Don't ask me to help if there's blood, if there's broken bones. Like it just was not the thing to do for me. So I dropped out of athletic training, finished in kinesiology. And funny enough too, my husband was also in that athletic training class as a freshman, and we both dropped out sophomore year. we started dating my senior year of college.
Right.
And that's how I ended up in Houston. So he had a job offer in Houston. I was like, okay, Houston sounds better than Indiana, so let's go. I graduated from Purdue. About a month later, we moved out to Houston, and that's when really my senior year, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do kind of with my life and my career. It was kind of really junior year. That one, I was still going through kinesiology. It was still kind of like, okay, I want to be a physical therapist. And then I was like, I don't love any of my rotations. This is kind of the time for me to take the GRE. Like, this is time for me to get really serious. And I was like, this is not, I don't have the passion for physical therapy that I want to spend all this money and all this time for something that I don't even know.
Right.
So that was like my junior year. Now at this point, I'm like, I am 3 years into a degree that I don't know what I'm going to do with. Most of kids in kines, they have to go to grad school.
Right.
It's really hard to get a job out of college just out with kines. And I was dating my husband, and I wanted to move across the country. And I was like, this is very stressful.
Yeah.
And so
just a bit.
Yeah. So when I was a senior, I had a good friend of mine. He was the lead personal trainer at the Purdue gym. And he was like, Aubrey, like, you're good at training. You like people. Just get certified. Have this in your back pocket. I was like, okay, like, that sounds like a great idea. I did that my senior year, really loved it, really enjoyed it. I was like, okay, I can just train in Houston. I can just get out there, do it for a year. If I don't like it, then that's okay. Then I'll go back to school for something.
Of course.
So I got a job at a Lifetime out in Houston, worked out there, and I fell in love with it. I loved working with clients every single day. I really loved helping people and being on the preventative side of injuries and building muscle, building strength, building confidence.
Less blood.
Yes, less blood, no blood, never had blood. That is, yes, never had blood. And so we lived there for 2 years, and then we got engaged. We were going to get married in June.
Right.
And Nate tells me like a month before the wedding, he was like, hey, what do you think about moving to Mobile, Alabama? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I am planning our wedding. And so we didn't have a lot of time. And then that's how I ended up here. We moved here in September. So yes, that's kind of the story of how I grew up, where I'm at, why I'm still a personal trainer, and how I ended up in Alabama.
I appreciate the very brief synopsis, because I think there's major gaps that you did not leave out whatsoever in that. That's great. That's fantastic. That's exactly what we wanted. Great. So, but I'm going to back up even farther than that. How about that? I don't know much about this, but growing up, I mean, and you told me about the moving around or whatever. Your folks, you lived on a farm, you milked cows. Well, no, I have no idea. So,
I
tell me about that.
I'm not a country girl. So I guess, growing up, I have 2 older brothers. They are 15 and 17 years older than me. So I was a surprise baby. My mom was on her way to get her tubes tied when she found out she was pregnant with me. So growing up was a little bit weird. Where we lived at in Indiana, it was West Lafayette. So it was a college town.
Okay.
I did not live on the farm, but a lot of my friends had drive your tractor to school day. It was very adjacent. And I did not understand that Purdue is a very big ag school, agriculture.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know it. At the house I lived in, all the girls were in agriculture. So I had a lot of friends like that, and I was like, I don't know what that means. And so growing up, I was basically an only child. My parents were a lot older, and that's kind of really stemmed my love for health and fitness too growing up. My dad was really overweight. He was probably, I don't know, like 300 pounds for most of my life. When I was 5 years old, he had a heart attack, or almost had a heart attack, and he was in the hospital for I don't know how long. He was in a coma for like a week. They wouldn't let me see him because they didn't think he was going to make it, and they didn't want that to be like my last memory of him.
Of course, yes.
So my first memory of my dad is him actually coming home from the hospital when I was 5.
Right.
Ever since I was 5, he had it was just a plethora of health issues in and out of the hospital, very close to heart attacks, very close to strokes, had double bypass surgery, all the things. And now that I'm an adult and like I help people with their nutrition, their health, I look back at kind of his
journey.
His patterns, and I was like, wow, like that was pretty bad. And I don't mean to bash him, and
of course.
As I become an adult too, I understand that like a lot of it like wasn't necessarily his fault. It was kind of the messaging that was preached to that generation, you know?
Right, yes.
Anyways, so he always had health problems. My mom, on the other hand, was kind of the other end of the spectrum. She was kind of like your typical almond mom, you know, very consumed with her body image and confidence. And I saw that. And so having kind of those two extremes was really kind of rough at first. And when I was a kid, I wasn't necessarily overweight, but I was a little chubbier. And that lived with me forever, really, And my parents would kind of make negative comments about my body as a child and made me really insecure about that. And so I had a lot of these feelings. It was very confusing at the time.
Sure.
I was pretty good at sports though.
Right.
And I was always kind of like, again, I wasn't overweight. Like looking at pictures of myself, I never was, but I always felt like I was.
Yeah,
I was taller than the other girls. I just wasn't very like feminine or girly. I was always with the boys. Like I had 2 older brothers.
Right.
I never really got along with girls. It was always kind of sports and it was kind of my outlet.
Right.
And so I was a 3-sport athlete all throughout high school. And just really kind of started dealing with those feelings that, every teenage girl kind of feels with.
Sure.
I would never necessarily say that I had like an eating disorder, but I definitely went through periods of time like I would go on Pinterest and look for diets. Like I remember I did this like soup diet once.
Right,
it was stupid. So like I'd go on Pinterest, look at these diets, look for like workout routines. I think I was like 13, very stupid workout routines, like, killer abs in like 5 days, the Pinterest workouts were really bad. Back then, I remember, I think like the first like workout program I bought was like Kayla. She was kind of like the pioneer for like online training and whatnot. And that kind of sums up like what was going through my head throughout junior high and high school.
Sure.
And I really decided this is stupid. This is like, I hate feeling this way. Like I want to understand why. And that's kind of why I really wanted to get into a field of helping people and figuring out the right way to work out. Cause I knew what I was doing was wrong. And like, I think a big part of it too is I'm so passionate about women and working out and lifting weights and being strong and empowering because I want to not let other little girls who felt like I did go through the same thing. Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, more than. Actually, this speaks to something I've talked about on the show before. And if you're a fan of the podcast, you've heard this and really why I asked the question the way I did about I want to know about your upbringing. What I was digging for is the fact that I've had over 30 trainers, close to 40, work at Personal Edge. And by the way, not a high turnover. We've been in business for 24 years. Average tenure of a staff member is 7 years. We're very proud of that. Average tenure in the field nationwide, the career of personal training is 2 years. So we're kind of proud of that. But of all those individuals, there's a passion there. There's a driving passion. And typically most people think, well, I was an athlete, therefore I did that. And there are people out there that do that. But what we look for in hiring is we look for that passion. There's a passion driving that. And your passion is going to be different than somebody else's. It's going to be different than somebody else's. And rarely do I don't think I've ever run into anybody, definitely not in an interview. Why did you get into this? Well, I didn't want to help people. Everybody, well, I wanted to help people. Okay. I mean, yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. I do too. You do too. Everybody does. Why? Why? Because your passion is what's going to drive that. And besides the multitude of things that you're fantastic in, because you train a lot of different, which we'll get into in a minute, populations in here. But the bringing that passion up, I live this, I experience this, I don't want somebody to go through this. I know what you're thinking, I know what you're feeling. That's what drove you in your education. Mm-hmm. No matter how you did in classes, what you really got interested in is anything that drove you in that territory. It's like the live age for me. The live age for me started with an argument that I had with a physician 30-something years ago. That's what drives me. And so, you answered the question. Whether I asked it or not, that's the question I wanted answered.
Okay, good.
And that's what makes our staff, besides having, of course, you heard us say, the bachelor's degree, then the master's degree on top of that. It's our brand. We have nobody on staff that does it. But on top of that, we're looking for certification. Sure, we're looking for that. But what am I looking for? That's what I'm looking for. That's what we measure for. That's what makes the big difference. And so your passions and the way you work on the floor speaks to that also. We say this all the time. There's nobody that comes in this facility that you can't train. Mm-hmm. Obviously. I mean, I would not think twice about putting you with anybody. But you have your vein. You have your things you really like to work on. You have your modalities, your foremost form of training or whatever. Go.
That's a little hard to answer and definitely hard to pinpoint. My realm, my passion, clients that I love looking forward to are the ones that are focused in building a lot of strength. And that is kind of the name of my game. The type of client that I have really bonded with and really enjoyed training a lot of times have been women who in the past, have been kind of your typical like cardio bunny,
right.
Just done
I'm still on that term. I love it. Cardio bunny. I've never had a term for that. I know what you mean.
Really?
And it's not derogatory.
Yeah.
That's mainly, I think that's mainly misinformation that makes them become a cardio bunny.
Exactly.
If they don't like it, I'm giving you full credit. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. They come in, they do the 12-3-30, doing like, and they're working hard. Like they are working hard and they're just not getting the results that they want, or they may have like a little bit of like an athletic background, but have never really like picked up a barbell before. They've been scared of it, never really picked up, a dumbbell or pushed heavy weight, and a lot of women that come to me, they're like, oh, like I don't want to get bulky. I'm like, you will not. Like I have been trying to be bulky for 10 years and I am not, so that's kind of what I really love. I love teaching people to, learn how to squat, learn how to deadlift, and really to embrace being strong, in my opinion, and muscle's worth its weight in gold for somebody. If I could snap my fingers right now and everyone gained 10 pounds of muscle, they would probably look 10 pounds leaner, so, and it's kind of fun too, like learning how to sell that to clients, because it's very hard for them to accept that at first. But yeah, so that's kind of like the client that I really love to train, really just helping, I would say, women feel empowered and strong and capable.
That speaks also to your background and your passion. You said a minute ago. I don't mean to be misogynistic when I say this, but typically that's a guys coming in here want to sling serious steel. The ladies don't, and they know a lot about strength training or whatever. Well, we've had some people. You weren't here when Lindsay was here. Lindsay was very passionate about strength training. We've had Kathy Fuller, our first trainer we ever hired, a PhD in kinesiology, very, very passionate about strength training. But you really are. Your affinity for Olympic lifting especially, because I think I look at that as the epitome of strength training. Why do I say that? Because it can be intimidating. Form is so important. It's about moving some serious steel. Mm-hmm. But the way you approach that, there's a major generation difference here between the two of us. And of course, what I experienced was, almost getting in arguments, not arguments, but really hard sell back in the late 80s, early 90s when I started training to women to strength train. Mm-hmm. And one of them was asking, don't you just have a cardio membership? I don't need that stuff. Are you kidding me? I couldn't make you look that way unless we're going to use like a really big needle and some illegal substances most likely coming out of Mexico. So the fact that I really fought that, the fact that you say you still encounter that, it's interesting. It's very interesting to me.
It's a lot. Sometimes, like, since I'm in this world, I think that it's getting better, but when I go out into the real world, there's still a lot of work to be done. And my husband, he gave me this book. It was about the history of women in fitness. And it was so interesting just to see kind of the evolution of it and what women were told. And it's something that I'm very passionate about because for so long, it was just put women in a box. If you're strong, you're too strong. If you do cardio, you do too much cardio. It was just like women could never be enough. And it really it stemmed back to runners. The first marathon runner that got tackled, and they said that like if a woman to run a marathon, she would die.
Right.
And it makes me really worked up. That women can be strong and
Absolutely.
capable, and it makes me so sad when they don't love the muscle that carries them or appreciate, their legs that can run or, having so many women tell me like, oh, like I can finally put my luggage in the overhead in an airplane and I couldn't do that before,
Exactly.
and
do that, so.
So that is something that I have always leaned into. Like I always want to be strong. I always want to be able to do things myself. And it's not like, I can't have a man.
Exactly.
It's just having that confidence in myself, especially in my lifts, like it only permeates into the rest of my life that I can do hard things that I never thought I could do.
Well, and the big part of that is that, strength equals living longer, period. I mean, and when I give the Law of Age presentation, the first part I talk about is the four components of ability are fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset. And the first thing I go over is fitness, and I talk about the nursing home study conducted by Dr. Ken Cooper, where he proved 300 people in a nursing home, whatever, and he did 6 simple exercises. And then at the end of like a very short amount of time, he improved their muscle by 50%. And I always ask, raise your hand if I'm in a crowd, raise your hand if you'd like 50% of the muscle. And then I say, if you don't have your hand up, I'll take yours. Yeah. And that's for women also. But the big point that you made a minute ago, we kind of glossed over it, and I don't want to scare the ladies maybe listening to this, is that does not mean big. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The beautiful part about strength training and building muscle, if you ever get to a point where you feel like something is too big, you can reduce the load and the volume, and it's not going to grow. You know, it's beautiful. It's sculpting your body. It's what it is. And, you know, and you can get to that point, and I'll be like, okay, we'll change our goals. It's amazing. It really is.
And it's what we talk about on the show all the time is hitting your level of wellness. This is where I want to be. I like the way I look or whatever. Fantastic. Doesn't matter what you like. It matters what the client likes. And they're, okay, fantastic. We can just keep you here the rest of your life. It's because your level of wellness. That's what we're looking for. And so I think, honestly, Aubrey, I think it's that word. It's build. A build, it's like when they say DIET. Diet means restriction and holding back. No, it means an eating plan. You're overeating, you're undereating, you're not eating, or whatever. That's all a diet. Okay, build, B-U-I-L-D, does not mean big. It does not mean get larger.
Right.
It means get stronger.
Right.
Which can mean so many times. In fact, more times than not, it can mean get leaner.
Exactly. Oh, 100%.
Funny that you're talking so much about working with ladies and have that passion for that, which that anybody that works around you knows that you're picking up on that. But, you know, Ross Roberts, come on now. And he does, Ross is going to love it that I mentioned his name here. He's like, that's like my granddaughter. She's wonderful, whatever. But the way you work with, I mean, you have a ton of male clients. I've never looked at the different sessions that you work with, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's 50-50, if not even possibly even more males. But especially with our senior populations, and I'll know why. I'm not going to ask you why. I'm going to tell you why, and because I'm hearing it. I'm hearing it from client after client after client, and that is your descriptions. Now we have. I think you would agree. You're with an incredible staff. You respect everybody that's on the team, and you would think that everybody can describe exercise really well. If not, we wouldn't be growing to 400 sessions a week. We wouldn't have a less than 20% turnover, 6.5 year average tenure. But in all the years, in 24 years of having this business, you're the compliment that I get the most over and over again is the way you describe our exercise. And I've had people say, "Oh yeah, they explain it really well, whatever." But to a person, when I'm asking and getting feedback about you, it's descriptions. Why is that? Can we bottle up?
Yeah.
Can we teach the people that?
That's a great question. Yeah. So in my opinion, you know, a lot of people are terrified of like the big lifts. You know, they don't want to hurt themselves. They don't want to hurt their back. They don't want to strain. And that's so valid. And in what other setting are they going to learn these abilities? And I feel very confident in helping them learn it. And it's just like a skill. That's what I try to tell them. It's like learning how to ride a bike. It's like learning to play the piano. You know, you're not going to be good at it the first day. And we practice those movement patterns. And to me, form is so important because it is, you know, it's quality over quantity. That's always going to go longer than anything else. And over the years, and I have really not been training that long in the grand scheme of things, like the past almost 5 years here, I've really learned that a lot of people do not know what it's like to be in their body. You know, they can't connect the dots. You know, they eat something and don't understand like why something else would happen. Or, you know, I tell them to feel a certain muscle in their body and they're like, I have no connection to that whatsoever. And I just think that's so important, just to be able to feel yourself and have that kinesthetic awareness. So yeah, I love teaching people form. I love seeing that light bulb moment. And a lot of it too is just really reassuring them that like you are not going to hurt yourself. Like I am not going to give you a weight that I think is going to injure yourself. Like I know when to tell you to stop. And I do really think that knowledge is power. And so I try to explain to clients like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I want you to do. And this is why we're going to do this. You know, so like I like to take videos of clients doing like a deadlift from the side. And because they'll do something so minuscule that like a lot of people could let go of. But I'm like, no, like we're building the foundation of a house. You know, if that cornerstone is not aligned, then the whole entire house is off. So like showing them like, hey, like you didn't squeeze your oranges between your armpit. That's a big one that I use a lot. And the first they're like, oh, I don't get it. I'm like, that's okay. You're not going to get it right now. But we just have to practice. You wouldn't, you know, expect someone to be
digest it all in the first bite.
Well, or to be perfect. And it kind of goes back to the like, oh, I don't want to be big and bulky. That's kind of like saying you don't want to drive because you don't want to be a NASCAR driver. You know, it's like you're not going to get there that fast.
No, that's not happening. Absolutely not. So you understand that dynamic, especially we have with females, and we've had it with seniors.
Mm-hmm.
I had a gentleman that told me, well, I don't want to get stronger. I just want to stay flexible. Wait
Yeah.
a second. I don't want to get wet. I want to take a shower. You're saying that, a strong muscle is a flexible muscle. And you understanding that and being able to explain that makes a massive difference. Okay. You can only have one. I need a quick answer on this.
Okay.
Favorite exercise? Go for it.
Dumbbell bench press.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have said deadlift. That's so awesome. Dumbbell bench press.
I
Awesome.
used to hate deadlifting, and
Really?
I used to hate squatting.
Oh,
I really hate
you
it.
would not know. And I mean, literally.
I know. Well, I've come a long way, but I love bench press.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great.
Because
That's good.
I would rather push against something than pull.
Right.
I hate every back exercise out there. I hate them all.
I love the honesty here. Okay, so and that's what's needed. We know that about our staff. Not that you can't do back exercises. Not that you don't do wonderful exercises. And by the way, you teach a deadlift. Awesome. Any trainer that tells you I don't have a favorite, I like everything equally, they're just lying to you.
Yeah.
Because we all do. We have our own. When it comes to it, my background is gymnastics, and then pole vaulting, swimming, whatever. It's all back muscles. So I used to have when I first started working out in the gym, really started training or whatever. On back day, I had a Batman T-shirt. And the reason being was those weren't wings; those were his lats. I mean, I'm big in the back, but you're more of a push person. That's understandable. And I was going to throw you in the same pile with Charlie and Josh because they would rather deadlift than breathe. So, but bench press, I love it. Dumbbell bench press. So. All right, look, we're actually this is like kind of a prelude. We had to introduce you to Aubrey. We have another show we're going to do, and I can't tell you what it is yet. Stay tuned. This is fantastic, but it's a special pop that is very near and dear to your heart, and I'm looking forward to talking about that. But I appreciate you coming on the show and introducing yourself and giving us the background. That background and that passion makes all the difference. It makes the difference in our culture. It makes the difference in our approach to our clients, approach to your clients. It's the reason I'm getting the responses that I am. And so that makes a huge difference. If you're interested in contacting Aubrey, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you're interested in contacting Aubrey, though, you can reach out to her. Make sure I spell this right. Aubrey, Aubrey, at personaledgefitness.com. She'd love to take your questions. So, and as usual, if you need to get in touch with us, contact us at 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. Garrett at personaledgefitness.com. And, of course, Personal Edge Fitness. Hit us up on X at Team PE if need be. So the staff, I talk about it all the time. The main reason why people come to see us is our expertise. Aubrey is just one more addition to that staff and one more way we help you reach your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.